Hello and welcome to a new year and a new injury time. We try to stay away. Actually, not too away. We were all involved in some way, shape, or form in Indian football, but we have decided to make a comeback. Uh, this is going to be a new show, a new style, a little bit different from what you guys are used to, but same faces. So, thank you so much, Brad, for joining me.
Hi, welcome, Sandeep. It's good to be back. I think it's a good time to be back as well. There's actually some momentum and some things happening in the right direction in Indian football. So hopefully that
Yes,
continues.
absolutely. We'll also have Orko back as well soon. But anyway, we'll start. Brad, as you said, we've been talking about coming back for a while. Finally, it seems like we are, and there he is, true injury time fashion. Orko, welcome.
What's up?
uh, so we are starting the show, and we were talking about why we were discussing about coming back for a while. For some reason or the other, it has been delayed, but finally we are here at the time when Indian football is, the I League and the top league are coming back, ISL. So, Brad, can I ask you this question? Obvious question here.
Yeah.
Finally, do we have league?
Well, we have something. I mean, whether you want to call it a league, not sure if that might be the right terminology, but there's football starting again. Some and all of the teams that were in the league agreed to come back. I think the formats, you could probably say some kind of a hybrid league tournament. Teams not necessarily all of them are going to be playing at home, and it's not home and away. But I think that's the best they can do, given it's starting in February and finishing in May. So it'll be a mishmash of some sort, but something's better than nothing.
Absolutely. For Indian football, a long time that has been the mantra. It's something's better than nothing. So we are going forward in the same way. Orko, you have been really busy coaching and developing young players for the future. How important is it that we have a fully functioning league? At least, I mean, it could have been like this year there was no league, and next year we would start again. But how important is it to have something like Prad said?
Um, I think from my perspective, I think there are two sides to it. I felt like Indian football needed to die in order to have a fresh restart, and we didn't really get it. We got Indian football in a coma, and then Indian football coming back. But I disagree with with the narrative that's been put out there saying Indian football is dead. ISL or the top tier is not Indian football in its entirety. I disagree with it. But yeah, I mean, it creates aspirational value for some people, and I understand um, why some people might want it. For the work that we do, it doesn't really matter. Our girls, our parents, they haven't even heard of ISL, honestly, right? But they've heard of IPL. That's something that permeates across their consciousness, right? So, in the larger frame of things, I don't think it really matters, right? If you ask people, even now, if you go to the street and ask people where is the ISL starting, they won't be able to tell you, right? So yeah, think about it. Does it
You
really
do,
matter? Yeah.
Brad, do you agree with this? Because I have slight disagreement with this.
No, I think I agree with Ork on the fact that it's not the be all and end all. There is, but the sad thing is, it's not just the ISL that stopped. The I League has stopped. There's the second division has stopped. What they've done with the IWL is again some kind of a mishmash where half the season started. Now we're on a pause. It's going on. So I think overall Indian football was dying, but that's been the case for a long time. It's not. It's just like now the attention came on it because the top league or didn't take place. But the fact that there's been a cancer in there and the patient is dying, that hasn't got enough attention. And I think now, it's it's got a little bit of limelight, obviously, with things like Citigroup pulling away. There's an article in the Guardian. So even globally, people, talking about Indian football isn't the thing. And it's exactly like when the Chinese league started. It started with a big bang. You're getting Asamoah Gyan and all these Carlos Tevez going there, and then the crash happened and everyone knew, okay, Chinese league is dead. I think that's happened now with the Indian Super League with all the foreign players going. But I agree with Dr. It actually needed to die. It needed a reset button. You had to reboot, like the old German thing of the Das Reboot, the great book. You needed that to happen. And, with the foreign players leaving now, and supposedly the salaries being brought down on the players, definitely needed to happen, because it's like a housing bubble, right? Years ago, in other countries, you have real estate market just keeps going up and up and up, and eventually the bubble bursts. You can't sit there and cry saying, well, I bought my house at a high value and now I have negative equity. That's your stupidity for thinking it's there. And I think that's where the clubs have got themselves into that situation where it just wasn't sustainable. It never was. And now, it's come home to roost, I think. So hopefully, I would have been happy with no season this year and then hard reset in August next year. But that's, for a lack of a better word, the clowns that are in charge have come up with this, and so let's see how this pans out.
Yes, so I agree with the points largely made here. The only disagreement earlier that I mentioned was I do feel the top division has to happen for from an aspirational point of view, and it's at the end of the day a face value. But as you said, it had to at some point it had to restart because Das Reboot, as you said, is a great book, and this is Hamada Reboot here. So it had to happen, and this is interesting, right? I wanted to bring in the foreign players into this conversation because there's a mass exodus of them leaving, and fair enough, they had to leave. They have a relatively short career. They need to make money. They need to play games. So that makes sense. From whatever I have heard, there seems to be some problems within, say, the 14 clubs. They are not aligned. Some of them are desperate to play. Some of them are okay to play if certain things are on their favor. Some of them were hoping, like Brad was saying, I heard some rumors that they prefer the hard reset and so on. So it, I don't know if it worked out well for everybody in the end, but either which ways, finally they have all agreed. But this season, how do you see that, Brad? Like foreign players, are they going to? Does it make sense to sign foreign players now for 3 months, or is this going to be one of those years where we're all playing with local players? And one other thing I'll add on: games between Thursdays and Sunday. It's something that we wanted always to have a weekend game and not all every day, every single day. So maybe that is a small positive.
I think if you're looking at the positives, definitely if it's Thursday, doubleheader Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's good because at least by the end of the week, you know who's top of the table and going forward. But I think from a broadcast view, historically, whenever there's a doubleheader, you get a massive drop in viewing because of second game. People just don't have a stomach to watch 2 games in a row. It's a culture of watching highlights. You can't watch 180 minutes. Most of the people don't have the appetite for that. And especially on a weekend where you're competing with all the other leagues and there's better stuff to watch. You're getting into peak. I think the women's cricket started already. The IPL equivalent with Women's Premier League, then T20 World Cup is going to start, then the IPL. So you're competing with big sports. I don't think they're going to get a proper broadcaster. The rumors are obviously it's going to be on DD Sports.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's on a weekend, I still think from that point of view, they're not necessarily going to get great viewership. And as you said, if the games are not home and away, teams like Kerala, who probably would have got a lot of fans, especially now that people have been starved of football, that's going to be an issue. Double headers means 4 o'clock kickoffs. We're getting into the hotter months now, especially once this league starts. So that's not necessarily going to be great from playing point of view, spectator point of view, and that'll affect viewer point of view as well. But getting back to the other point you mentioned about foreign players, look, I think it doesn't make sense for clubs to sign more foreign players. If you have them on your books, it's probably, if you got long-term contracts with them, terminating them is going to cost you a lot more if they don't want to move. So you might as well play with them. If the players choose to go abroad because of the uncertainty, fair play to them. I don't think you can't mandate that it's an all-Indian league. But I think longer term, they should start putting things in place now, saying from next year onwards, it should only be, let's say, 4. And if it's 4 play, not 6 and 4 play, So you have more opportunity for Indian players, because ultimately, come March when we have I think our last national team game, again the debate will be there about we don't have centre backs, we don't have strikers, blah 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 blah. So why not try and fix those things which you know are a problem now when you are rebooting, rather than make the same mistake again and again and again. And also from a cost point of view, I mean, you're better off not signing any foreign players than going back to the old I-League days of signing a Ranti or a Odafa or a Chidi or something like that, because then you're effectively just going back to, it's not a reboot, it's a rewind then of 20 years ago. So, and that wasn't fun to watch, and that wasn't good football. So
How about hosting? It's a single leg. And if I am, say, Bangalore FC, I want to host. I would prefer to host the Kerala Blasters game because that's a huge game. You get a lot of fans coming in, and if it's the same for everybody, right? Everybody wants to host certain games because that's the money spin. And also, competitive advantage is an issue as well. We don't know how many teams are going to host how many games. So in this kind of scenario, I know it's a truncated league, it's a special circumstances, but how would you at least try to mitigate the inequality there?
I think, look, if the clubs are getting say in it, then you'd want BFC would probably want Kerala Blasters at home. And for Kerala, they probably, any of their games or any of their 7 home games, I think they'll sell out, just because fans have been starved of it. But if Mumbai aren't playing in Mumbai Arena and they're playing in Goa, it doesn't make a difference which games they have, home or away. I think they're not getting people. How many people from West Coast Brigade are coming down to Goa and packing the stadium? So they'll probably have just as many people in the stadium as they do at Mumbai Football Arena for some of their games. So it's going to be like the old days of the I-League in a way, of one man and a dog in a stadium in Fatorda watching a game, apart from the FC Goa games. And as the league progresses, I think with the pace of play, we saw it in the Super Cup, I think, where there were hardly any of the foreign players. Some of the teams were playing all Indian. The quality was poor. I mean, it was for us people who watch Indian football regularly, it was painful viewing. I went to the stadium and watched a couple of games, and you're hard pressed to sort of stay focused and watch the game. And I think the quality of the coaching is going to drop. It's an opportunity for a lot of young Indian coaches to get games as a head coach, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Some of them are not right for it. It just, it's this, let's get as many people pro licenses as possible. Let's get as many ex-players becoming coaches as possible, and just fast track them into the job. And they haven't even coached a youth level team or a second division team, or they haven't worked their way up the ladder, and they've just been put in this position. So don't expect great quality of football. It'll be similar to what we saw in the Super Cup, just with drier fields. That's the only difference.
Drier fields. And some stadiums which are, getting ready rather than already ready for the games. So moving away from the men's game, there's a lot to talk about, and we'll come back to it in the second half of our conversation here. Orco IWL, can you give us a rundown so far? What has stood out for you? What has been, good, bad, and the ugly?
Well, personally, a kid that I coached for almost a decade is tearing it up. Not good. I mean, not great, I would say. Not to the extent that I would like, but she was playing at left back initially, which she isn't great at. I mean, 1v1 defending is not great, but when she played at 6, she was good. And
you have to tell the name.
Yeah, the girl's name is Ruchi. She's playing for Setu, and she was great at 6. But then I looked at the overall quality of the league, and her technical attributes stood out, because the league is honestly painful to watch. Like, I mean, and Brad would agree, because Brad's watching the league as well, right? Because I see the league, it's slow. Indian players are ponderous. Foreigners are bad. Shocking.
So is
I
it
mean,
slower than before, or is there an improvement? Or is it the
I
same?
mean, it's as slow as before. It's as slow as
Okay.
before. Players still take 5 seconds to release the ball. I mean, the it's a semi-pro game, if I could call it. Salaries are super inflated, heading the ISL way, clearly. And yeah, I mean, I understand that ISL has all these problems, but I have no idea why the IWL was truncated this year, right? In a year where all three teams are alive in Asia and fighting for still mathematical chance to qualify. Uh, let's not go into the chances on paper and whatsoever. A 38-day league is a slap on the face, right? It kind of undermines the work we are doing at grassroots level also. It's not a great sign. It's very discouraging. And teams are sluggish. Teams have gone through 3-4 month camp. They've been in camp since August, right? Because they're waiting for the leagues to start, because a lot of promises were made. September start, then November start, finally start December. So then teams start playing every 3 days, and you can see the quality of the league is bad. The quality of the league is so bad that a Gokulam is drawing against a Sessa, a team which should ideally lose all the games, right? Kickstart is losing to a Garwal, and all credit to Garwal that they've kept the same squad for 4 years. They've kept some continuity, but Kickstart, somebody who made the final 2 years ago, has fallen so far. So the same type of players are being regurgitated. Same problems as ISL. The same players are being recycled. No new talent, no fresh scouting, agent-driven scouting or coach-driven scouting. In the women's game, more than the men's game, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is an agent. Every parent becomes an agent. Every coach becomes an agent. It's a much more murkier, much more darker, blacker market, if I call it that. I wish I
And
could go into detail, but we
less
don't have the
seen,
time.
right?
Yeah,
Less seen also, right? So you can get away with a lot more, I would think.
you can get away with a lot of shady business, obviously. And no, AFF mandates, AFF according to rule mandates that all agents have to declare. There is a portal, you have to declare it. All of it is there. But I understand problems with the ISL, but the elephant in the room can't be ignored anymore. That the AFF is broke, and that is what has led to this 38-day league, right? Which is why the I League 2, I League 3 are also not happening. So it's all interconnected. Yeah. But like I said, the IWL is painfully slow, and the only team that looks set in gear, that has played enough matches, East Bengal, is running away with it. Just stomped its authority on the second place team, beat Nita FA 5-0, and Nita FA was in second place, and now Setu is. So I don't see they're winning easily again. So I mean, the only real question is who's going down, and that also very clear. Sessa, I think 100%, and I think 95% should be Kickstart. There is 5% that somebody else will slip up, but yeah.
Yeah. So you've given a rundown of the whole thing, and before we wind up the first section of our chat here today, this year, I mean, the three sections of women's team are playing at big stages, and they haven't got enough games, and they haven't
Yeah.
got a proper build up to it. But one
Yeah.
news that came yesterday is that Amelia Valverde is going to mentor or head coach the women's team before the Asian Cup. What is your take? I don't know anything about her. Do you know enough about this person?
No, I
And
mean,
what we can expect, in a short stint.
I I obviously went through a profile the moment it was announced. I read it. Seems great, but again, it seems like you're getting somebody at the last moment to do some to perform a miracle. I've obviously and Brad is obviously much better to answer this. You can't perform a miracle. You can't transform a donkey into a horse overnight. You can't do that, right? You can't. You've given her less than 50 days and said, you know what? Now these are your horses. Now turn them into thoroughbreds, right? Your first game is on March 4th, right? Amelia Valverde has been put in a position where if she succeeds, the AIF pats on her back and said, "Yay, we bought her in." If she fails, she becomes the scapegoat. So, I mean, seriously, uh, this should have been done much before. If Crispin's legs had to be cut from underneath him, it had to be done much, much, much before, right? For example, Prad's in charge of the Philippines under-17 women's team, right? He was in charge of the qualifiers, right? So he might go back for the final tournament. He wasn't put in place at the last moment and said, now we qualified to the AFC. Why don't you take charge of our team? So turns out there are people who are much better planners than us. So she's left with an insurmountable task. Very difficult.
Yeah, I mean,
So, Pratt, this is what I wanted to ask you
I
the
think
same, because you have gone through the similar kind of situation, but you had a camp.
yeah.
How difficult is it to come in and then, make that impact? And you did. So,
Look, yeah. I think look, what they've done is an absolute disgrace. It's embarrassing. It just tells you everything you need to know about our national team setup and the people who are running it, or in the positions to run it. I mean, to even say they're running it is a disservice, because the team were at the airport yesterday. The international flight. They're going to Turkey for the camp, so they're there 4 or 5 hours earlier. At the airport, you get on a Zoom call with your so-called national team's director and a couple of other people at the federation to tell you that, oh, by the way, we're bringing in this woman as your new head coach. I mean, rewind it a little bit. If they had this plan in place for a couple of months, surely she should have been here watching the games, the IWL games. Having the IWL stop before a major tournament is also daft. If you had it running throughout the year, longer, more players get games, and you got a chance to see who's going to impress and who's going to take it. And as I said, the ones who are at the top of the league, it's obviously going to be the East Bengal ladies, because they played in the Asian qualifiers and they had that SAF tournament, so they've had much more games to embed themselves. So pretty much the team is going to be the same players. There was all this talk about, oh, look, we're going to promote Indian coaches. So you got head coach of the national team on the men's side, an Indian coach, and the under-23s, and all the fluff around it was, oh, look how well they're doing. We don't need foreign coaches. So same with the women's program. And then all of a sudden you clip Crispin's wings just as they're literally about to fly, as they're about to take off. So it's just daft planning, as like I said. And then, why they would do it, they've got their own reasons. I mean, the usual things. There'll be, just like with the clubs, there'll be some cut money involved, there'll be agents involved. Otherwise, it's not as if the people who are running the national team have any clue about women's football or what Amelia Valverde has done with Costa Rica or with Monterrey, Mexico. They've never watched her coach a single game. They probably wouldn't even add. I bet if you spoke to Amelia Valverde a week ago, she wouldn't be able to name the starting 11 of the Indian team, right? So now throwing her in there and saying, here, coach a team, not just coach a team that's been selected by somebody else. That's the worst thing as a coach. You go in there, at least you get to. I went in to a national team setup. There's a camp, and I got to finalize the 23 before we traveled. This is a case where they're already at the airport. Their visas. They're flying to Turkey. She's then gonna probably just meet them in Turkey and get to coach these players. And hopefully, if you look and watch all the videos of the IWL, say, well, okay, maybe there's a player at Setu, or there's a player at XYZ Nita SC that I can possibly bring in this position. But as Orca just said, this player should be playing in center midfield, playing at left back, and there's no context, right? I mean, the IWL I was watching reminded me of a lot of similarities of the I League of 20 years ago, where it was, give the ball to the foreigner and let him take it from there. And literally, IWL is like that. You see, even some of the top teams, they have a striker from Africa, and she's up top and doesn't do anything out of position, no pressing, no out of position work whatsoever from the star foreign player. And when they win the ball, there's no pattern of how they're going to play it. Like, just get it up to her as quickly as possible and hope she beats 2 players and smashes it into the net or straight past the goalkeeper. And that's sadly what the level is now. You take away those players, just like with the men's football, and you put the national team set up now. Where's the goal going to come from? Where's the defending? You're relying on the IWL is relying heavily on individuals rather than actual much team play. From what I've seen this season, Orca's in a better position because he's watched it IWL too, and over the years I've probably just picked which games to watch over the years. But it's very, very individual focused, and the teams with a better foreigner will more often than not come up with the 3 points in the games rather than strategy, gameplay, etc. Tell me if I'm right or wrong, okay?
Yeah. It's bang on the money. Yeah.
But the best thing about Indian football is more things change, the more they stay the same. It's always
Yeah.
banking on foreign players. Let's do coaching changes with the foreign coach at the last minute. And we have this craziness for camps, not live matches. Let's do 2 month camp. Let's
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
3 week camp.
Yeah. And you know the biggest thing is I keep hearing, as an aspirational coach, I keep hearing what they speak on sidelines, right? They are literally playing PlayStation with the players. They're literally saying, turn, drop, don't move. You're choreographing an entire match. You're not allowing the players to grow. You're not allowing the players to think for themselves. You're not allowing them to become creative individuals. You're clamping them. You're limiting their cognitive abilities. So, I mean, I've always said it, but yeah, in the women's game, people get away with way more nonsense than in the men's game, just because there's very few eyeballs. Yeah.
Right. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think we've seen it this season, I think, because there hasn't been the ISL going on and the I League going on. I think more eyeballs have been on the league, and the IWL. And given they're playing in the winter, early kickoffs, the intensity's got to be much, much better. I mean, there's no excuse for just sitting out. Teams want to, so it looks good for untrained eye. Oh, look, they're trying to play out from the back, but there's absolutely no opposition. You're letting them come up to the halfway. I've seen games where clubs have recruited a foreign goalkeeper, and then you have a defender taking a goal kick. I mean, this is like under 12 school football. I mean, the books that are behind you when you're talking about in sacred grounds about playing as a youngster. The goalkeeper couldn't kick. You'd put somebody in goal because they'd say, all right, they can't play, so let somebody else take a goal kick. And this is a professional women's league, and you've signed a foreign goalkeeper. So surely you must have watched some video and thought, on what basis did you sign? A lot of them don't have. It's tough. Trust me, recruiting in foreign players in the women's game is difficult. There's not much video. There's not much Instat, why scout, etc. But surely you must know that she can't kick, and you're trying to play out, and you're getting a defender kicking it. It's amateur level at best. So, and there's little things like that which you notice, and you sort of face palm moments. And there's too many of them, unfortunately. So that doesn't really bode well for the women's team in terms of preparation for this. So hopefully, Amelia Valverde's got some, miracle skills, or there's some astrologer that can help. Let's see.
On that bombshell, I think that is a good time to end the first section, and we'll come in with the second one soon. So, welcome to the second part, where this is going to be the format going forward. We take a deep dive into some topic that we find interesting in Indian football. This one, let's talk about this in a different way. Indian football is dead or Indian football is dying is generally the mantra that we've heard for the last few months. And Orko mentioned something earlier, that Indian football is not dead. And as the person who wrote a book about why Indian football is not dead recently, I concur with him, and I'm sure so does Pradyum. So let's talk about this, right? Away from the top division. This year, let's just talk about the last 6 months. Since the league has not happened, there was always talk about whether the league will happen or no. In this duration, we've had a Shillong Premier League that went well. We had a Super League Kerala that was huge success in terms of numbers and fans and etc. The Naga Super League also went well. The Mizoram Premier League, there were leagues happening in Manipur, and there were so many things happening. Even Karnataka had the State Association League. Again, not a crowd puller, but that also happened. But so, Brad, can I ask about the simple question like, is this where football lives? Forget the ISL, but is this where football lives? In a romanticized way, I would say yes, but I just wanted to know your opinion.
Like I learned a little about this. I've read your book, and then it goes. Historically, the context is there that we've liked short tournament format leagues, right? Or tournaments. I mean, always like, even when you talk about the days when these clubs always say we won the Rovers Cup or we won the Stafford Cup or this and then. So teams were just basically running around different parts of India. And I was coaching at Ladong more than almost 15 years ago now. Yeah, it was, you'd go to Sikkim for the Governor's Cup, you'd come play border law in Guwahati. You're constantly bouncing from tournament to tournament, knockout tournaments. And then eventually you hope that some league takes part. And you have your own domestic league, like Shillong Premier League or Mizo Premier League and all this. So those work because it's low cost and the short duration. Mizo Premier League always finishes by December. Shillong Premier League now typically finishes around then. So then you can, if you're a selling kind of club, you can loan your players out in the January window to a second division team or I-League team, and teams who are good with their scouting will scour these leagues for players. So I think from that framework, it kind of works because you couldn't sustain a Super League Kerala year round. Climate reasons and costs, etc. I don't think it's sustainable. And so it works, but yeah, you're getting eyeballs at the moment. Everyone's like, oh, look at the crowds in Kerala. You'll get crowds even for a sevens game. So I don't think the crowds is a big factor because it's, how much of that is actually genuine revenue, how many of those, none of them own those stadiums, and it's predominantly in one region where you're getting the big crowds. And don't forget, even ISL got crowds in the first couple of seasons, right? Can you sustain it longer? And that's, I think that's going to be the trick. From a coach's point of view and a player, I spoke to a couple of coaches in the Super League in Kerala. They said there's not much coaching. You have a pre-season and that's where you're done most of your coaching. The rest of the time you're just traveling. And it's just the same, rest, recovery, train, hardly any training. And so most of it comes down to how good your recruitment was. With new coaches every year, most of them haven't a clue about the local players. And where do you scout the local talent? Because there's rules about so many local players and everything. So where do you scout the best ones for Super League Kerala? At least in the established leagues like Shillong, Mizoram Premier League, there is a structure where the players come from. And typically there are certain teams which get it better, get it right in terms of picking up some of the better youngsters. But it's not sustainable. If you're a youngster playing 3-4 months with one league, and then what? You need year-round football. And all of these are no different than how when the ISL started. It was a 3-month league and people consider it a success. So I think if you want to count these as success, they have to be a bit more long-term in terms of both duration of the league. So there's more games. It has to be longer term. Let's see how these leagues last in 10 years' time. Because you mentioned about Karnataka League. It's gone from what used to be competitive 8 teams to now, I think it's 18 teams where you play each other once. And I would say probably from what I've heard from the coaches over there, more than 50% of the teams are involved in match fixing. And that's the case for a lot of other leagues as well. So whilst we say, oh, look, there's crowds, there's football happening, there's this and happening, but it's not real football. Goa League is the same. It runs, it has breaks, and then it starts again, and starts back again. But there's 3 teams at the bottom who are definitely involved in it. And there's some who are perennially involved in this. And I mean, all of us know this. It happens in most of these state leagues. So calling that a success is, turning a blind eye to the most obvious thing.
Yes. One thing that I found interesting, what you mentioned, the Shillong Premier League is not the Meghalaya League. They have a state league. Similarly, SLK has a different league as well. Quite a few of them. Mizo Premier League obviously is different. And I think Manipur also has one that is different from the Premier League and the Super League. So sorry.
Like even Kolkata now, there's the Kolkata has a CFL, which is traditional strong league, etc.
The Bengal Super League.
And even that's kind of and now they started this Bengal Super League, which by all accounts is just a farce from what I spoke to a couple of
I don't think that was a real success.
It's just not. I mean, you're better off. Some of them actually just like one of the chapters in your book said you're better off playing it than playing in the Bengal Super League.
That's what it is. So I think even Gujarat tried a Super League. I don't think that was a roaring success either. But the question I wanted to ask, I'll come to you, Ankur, about this, is these are now pseudo cup tournaments. And while it's not the same structure as before, does it sort of imply that India is like a cup country where we all like to watch something that is, 2 months, 1 month, a burst of games, and then we sort of go on with life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's counterintuitive to what happens in developed football countries, right? So your state leagues are your equivalents of your counties league. Or if you look at a parallel of in with England or Spain, your state leagues are the equivalents of tercera, or what happens in division 5 or 6 or 7, right? So there, even there, you have those divisions running throughout the year, and then you have the top division also running throughout the year, right? So that you have a larger pool of players, which we technically can, because if I look at it, we at least have, and I was doing the math with you the other
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
There are at least 300 to 500 state league clubs who pour in serious money. But by serious money, I mean anywhere more than 10 lakh, 10, 15 lakh, 20 lakh, right? So yeah, I mean, we are a cup tournament. From personal experience, I've seen at the Delhi level teams arguing against longer leagues because they're saying our fooding, lodging, accommodation costs are going to go up, because there is always this habit of importing players, always habit. So the teams themselves are against longer leagues, right? And that is the death knell for anyone who wants to make the league longer, right? The teams themselves don't want longer leagues. So the moment you introduce a longer league, that has a direct correlation with youth development. Then teams think, oh, I can't feed this guy, I can't keep this guy in a hotel or in a flat for 9 months, 10 months. I can't do that. I have to start my own youth development process. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it is the truth. But teams argue against a week's break between matches. Teams argue against what do you say, domicile rules. People say do away with the domicile rules. So I mean, and the question always from them is, where is the local pool? My question back to them is, aren't you supposed to develop the local pool? So
Yes. Right. As a C.
Another thing, yeah. So one more thing to just add on to what I was saying. If when you compare these leagues, like you compare with the Tercera or the lower leagues, those players are semi-professional. So if you're playing at, let's say, Bangalore Super Division level or Bangalore A Division or Delhi League, then you should have another job as well as football. And then, so yeah, if the league goes on longer, it shouldn't be an issue. You still have your day job, and then you train in the evening and you play on the weekend. And that's how the league should follow. It shouldn't be, as Orca said, you import a player from the Northeast and or from Kerala or from Bengal, and then keep him and go off for a few months and try and do well in the league. And then, you're upset that the league getting dragged out because of Santosh Trophy break and this, that, and the other, and it gets longer because your costs come up. You should be playing with local. If the states can't sustain that many local players, if there isn't enough talent pool, you don't need 18 teams then. Why do you need an 18-team BDFA Super Division? Right? It should be just 8 teams but competitive. Right? And then, but it has to be running a year round. The reasons in the Northeast are different. They've always historically finished by around the Christmas break, and they stop. Weather has an impact on it. So they start at a certain time, finish at a certain time. But it works for them because they move those players along. But I think the way a lot of these are structured, it comes back to, I think we're a generation now of short attention span. We can't follow a league throughout the season. We need these, like, kabaddi, cricket, all of them are very, very short. And even kabaddi, I think when they try to do 2 seasons in one, or like an Argentine Flacera, Apertura, they did it once, I think, and it failed miserably. Massive losses. So I think, yeah, maybe the consumer as well just has a short attention span. A knockout kind of tournament is better for them. Go in knowing that there's going to be a winner. But I think from player development point of view, it has to get longer and longer, and maybe leagues like the RFDL have to replace some of these local leagues. But again, costs. cost is a huge factor with that, and the size of our country. So it's difficult for teams even at that level to do it for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
this is a
just to add to what Brad said, funny, I saw a notice by AMFA recently where it actually took a stance against the RFDL. It said Reliance didn't follow the proper procedures, so we are banning the RFDL.
AMFA's All
AMFA,
Manipur
yeah,
Football
Manipur,
Association.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's
Manipur,
yeah. AMFA is essentially the Manipur version of the AFF. They're responsible for doing more harm to the local game than good. But of course, you know that because you've been there now, Sandeep. So you know this.
Yes. So I had this just because you spoke about the player development, not a development point of view, because earlier, even now, sevens players, a lot of the foreigners, they play sevens, which happens in the winter months of Kerala.
yeah.
We really don't have a winter, but then they might go to the north and they play the other games. They go to the northeast. I met a couple of them in Shillong playing Basti over there, and then come back. So it's a different sort of life there. Which is not something that is conducive for Indian football's development. But Pratt, this you mentioned about cost, and since you have worked as a CEO and you've seen that side of business as well. To be fair, people don't know Orco also has run a team, women's team last year in the intercaste women's team. So anyway, Pratt, when we look at the investment, the struggle of investment for AIFF to get a title sponsor. To be fair, ISL did not have a title sponsor for the last couple of years also. And from what I'm hearing, most likely this year will be some PSU, something or the other, which again is not a long-term fix. But we do find Coca-Cola coming on board. So there is maybe something there. But why is it harder for them to find an investor to invest in their league and stuff? Because nobody picked up the tender, all that stuff that happened earlier. But SLK gets a lot of people to invest on them. A lot of these other smaller leagues get that. Of course, scale is one factor. What else do you think is sort of helping them?
Trust. I mean,
Trust.
look at. I mean, would you put your money in the hands of people that are proven to be incompetent, right? I think that comes down to it. It's like people, you're not going to put your name behind a product that has so much negativity associated with it. So I think that's going to take a long time to change that image. It's an image thing. No reputable company is going to come and say, yeah, I'm going to back these guys who are in charge because they will help. You don't want to be associated with something like that. So can't blame sponsors. But you flip it the other way, right? Orca knows this very well. Clubs. One is it's difficult even at a club level to get revenue in sponsors or other forms of revenue at club. But what you can do is you can cut your costs and save on all the frills and wastes. And I think both the federation, it's not always even the guys who are in charge, the way the ISL was organized, the way some of these, even the I League is organized, they're not run very efficiently. There's so much wastage, so much inefficiency. And you cut that, you wouldn't be so desperate to require a sponsor because you don't need to be wasting the kind of sums that they waste on things which aren't important to the development of football in India. And the obvious one that comes to mind is club licensing. It's such a load of BS. And a step down from that would then be academic accreditation and all that. So we waste money on bureaucracy and box ticking and that money that doesn't go into the game. So that's so don't complain about sponsors.
So obviously trust is a huge factor there. One other thing that they maybe are unable to get over a long period of time. Of course, there are exceptions like the Calcutta clubs and Kerala Blasters, maybe to an extent BFC, is consistent relatability to the fans. We have teams. I think Pune went from Pune to Hyderabad to Delhi. Odisha went from where was Odisha first? Delhi
Delhi
to
Dynamos.
Odisha. And that we have a Delhi FC playing in Mahipur. We have a Round Class Punjab that is playing in Delhi. So we have all these things that are happening, right? Why is it so hard to maintain relatability? Because I was speaking to the CEO of the SLK, and he said one of the major factors that we find is relatability with the locality and whatever, because it's the Malabar side is very strong in that culture. I think they want to extend, and I was asking them, are you going to continue in Kasargod or somewhere, and they're not very sure. We'll see where that goes. But why is it so hard to maintain that sort of essential flavor with the locals?
So I think if you look at how clubs are formed everywhere else in the world, there's a culture to it, right? Yeah, there's regions which are hotspots. Clubs come out of there. If you look at a lot of the ISL and even some of the I League clubs, they've just popped up because of an individual's interest. Or maybe the ISL, the logic was in those days the I League was too,
Cluster.
too centric. It was Kolkata. There was 4 in Kolkata, 4 in Goa, and two or three in that Mumbai-Pune region, which made it, that was majority of the I League. So that those 11 teams. And they felt that let's have it one in each state, like IPL model. What they forget is cricket is played everywhere. And cricketers don't necessarily, it's not, people love cricket anyway. So you can have a match in Indore and people will come irrespective of the number of players from that region. But football isn't like that. And you can have 10 teams in one if there's a culture there. London has more Premier League teams, the Manchester region has a load of teams, and that's just normal, right? So if you just pop up a team in Pune, almost guarantee it's going to fail. There just isn't the football culture there to sustain a team, and numerous teams have failed. It's sort of graveyard of Indian football. And similarly, I think Delhi's got its problems, and if you just pop teams up in those places, it's not going to work. Whereas what you mentioned, Malappuram, you can have another team coming in there in the Super League Kerala. We discussed that, I think, last week. You can have another 2 teams probably coming from that region. And
Kasargod can have one more, yeah.
Kasargod will definitely also, and then you'll get the numbers. Possibly there's regions in Tamil Nadu which will probably get better support. I think Chennai City FC probably got better crowd support in Coimbatore than when they played in Chennai. So I think that's another factor that you need to, a team from Nagpur or that region might get better support than any Mumbai team would. But culture has a huge factor in it.
Yeah, it was, would you say it was okay when ISL was like a superimposed cup tournament for 2 months, and all they needed was this easy access to different airports, and you could just play a game there. But the main league was I League, and I think the biggest problem that happened was when I League was sort of murdered by the people that was running it for the sake of ISL. I don't have a qualms with ISL trying to be the top division. If I was in that power, I would try to do the same. But I think as a federation, you should have had a little bit more wherewithal. That is just my opinion.
Not just the federation. I think even the people running the ISL should have thought that you don't kill everything around you, right? Don't burn all the grass around you, and just so that your trees can flourish, because then you've killed the whole ecosystem. And I think that's where they made a huge mistake. They should have tried to elevate the I League clubs with them as they became along the league. And if they'd done that, probably we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. At the same time, they could have come in with a plan where a lot of that money that wasn't wasted on your Anelkas and this and that of the world, and your opening ceremonies and dance performances and all that rubbish could have gone into youth and women's football, etc. It was almost like an afterthought on all this stuff. I think that's where they've lost it. And it's the same with these state leagues that we were just talking about. How many of them are actually, that money is trickling down from the Kerala Super League into youth development? There was talk this year that, okay, they're going to be year round, they're going to do grassroots programs. Haven't really heard much about it. You don't see much women's football happening in Kerala. You don't see that trickle down effect in, Bengal from that Super League. So again, in the long term, it's not really going to help the ecosystem.
Okay, what about you?
Whichever genius came up with the idea of inflating salaries in the 5th division of Indian football, I mean, my hat's off to it. Seriously. It was unsustainable in the first place. And then someone said, let's make clubs in the 5th division of Indian football pay crores. And I'm just looking at this farce from a far off distance, like that meme of the guy sitting on the wall watching people fight a war. It's shambolic, mate. It's I mean, what do I say? I'm sure everybody associated with these franchise-based state leagues is very bullish at the start, but I feel they're all a bubble. They're all a bubble just
Absolutely.
waiting to burst, right? Like it's just a small pinprick and they're done. They're finito. Somebody at I had a friend at Geostar who crunched the numbers. SLK in Kerala versus ISL in Kerala, and he said no comparison. There's no comparison. ISL in Kerala blows out SLK in Kerala. I'm sure your friend who's a CEO might not want me to reveal this, but yeah, that is the truth. In fact, um, one positive. The one place where the franchise-based league has made a difference is Sikkim. I feel where Sikkim had no league to start off with. Sikkim did not have anything, and they did not have a place where their local talent could be seen. Now there is. And yeah, I've been meaning to go and watch one edition because apparently 20, 25, 30, 35,000 people are coming to watch the finals. So there it has made a significant impact. At least some amount of gate revenue is being generated. How sustainable is it is again debatable. But yeah, if the Sikkim model can be followed, if a low cost franchise league can be held, then all for it. But CFL did Bengal did not need a league, super league. Honestly, Bengal had the CFL. Bengal had 5 divisions, 6 divisions to start off with. Bengal did not. Same Kerala also. Kerala had a
They had a Premier League.
Premier League. So yeah, I mean, this is again trying to build something on top of an established pyramid. So why? My question is simple: why?
No, this is a very interesting thing, right? Because you're always finding new solutions for a new problem that we only thought
If
about.
it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, as we wind, so Prad, you're going to
Yeah.
say?
No, the problem is it is broke, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Fair.
So, fine.
So,
That's a good point. I have nothing to say to that. But one last thing I wanted to touch on as we wind down here is the life of a lot of these clubs, right? For example, I think twice in Shillong, Maulai won, and they are a locality club, of course, with a benefactor, and of course, and like you said, many other leagues in Sikkim, etc. They are quite happy being in the second division, right? When there is a good ecosystem around you where you can play and then sell off your players, it is a good model that is sustainable and ambition. Maybe that's okay to be in, feeder club.
yeah, I think from a golf point of view, if you look at somebody like a Shillong and the clubs like that in Shillong, if they can play the Shillong Premier League from August, so you have a July preseason, August you play all the way up until May, have a little break, and in the January window, if there's anybody that's can be sold, you sell them out to a team. You keep core of your youngsters and you play in an RPL under 21, which starts around that time of the year. And if there's a second division where it's home and away, but starts regionally, low cost, you play against, teams from Assam, you play the Chanmaris of the world, you play, and you're not necessarily aiming to qualify for the I League. You just want to be competitive, do as well as possible. And then next year, rinse and repeat the same cycle. You can sell a lot of your players because they're getting opportunities at a high level, you get the Grand Cup, etc. It's no different than a lot of the teams in the championship in England. They're realistically not going to qualify for the Premier League unless they get, a steroid injection of funds from, an oil sheikh or an oligarch or private equity fund from the US, right? But they're happy to be, and there's a lot of championship teams that are just championship teams. And the moment they get into the I League, you're going to start running into huge losses because of the travel, foreigners that you have to sign, etc., which is money just going out of the ecosystem. Shillong not having let's say Angleterre not having foreigners and playing in the second division, that money is just staying within the state of Meghalaya, right? And it's not exiting. So, and in the long run, obviously, the fields get better, practice facilities haven't got better. If I look at 15 years ago, what it was like in Meghalaya to now, it's much, much better, significantly better. The fact that you can even host international games. And the women's football is growing in that region. Some of these clubs that we just mentioned have pretty strong women's program and youth program. You wouldn't have that. The moment you go in, all your funds get diverted into things, club licensing and other rubbish that you waste money on. That Lajong just doesn't want to do. So they'd probably be happy to drop down into a second tier. As long as you know that the second tier is consistent, every year is going to be Jan to April end, and you're running that. That would work for a lot of these clubs. I think the Changmaris and a lot of other clubs would be quite happy being in that ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you must have had this kind of conversation as well. When someone has asked me and said, "Do you think I can connect some investors somewhere? So we would like to go up." And I keep telling, "Why do you want to go up? You're doing well at this level. You're going to, burn your fingers if you go up." Which might seem like a very bad advice, but I feel like I should tell them that because they're doing great job at this level. And not everybody needs to be, ISL team or whatever, a top division team.
Yeah, if you just want to multiply your losses by 4, then keep moving up one division in Indian football. That's the simple math. So, and has been over the last few years. You lose, from 1 CR at the second division level, you lose 4 at the I League level at the bare minimum, and then 20, 16 to 20 at the ISL level. And
Yeah.
as Orca said, it's becoming similar now in the IWL, from State League to IWL2 to IWL3. That's a sort of a similar multiplier, I think.
Yes. Last word, Orko, as we wind down. Your thoughts on the life of football outside top division and its importance and troubles.
Terrible. I mean, in a
I was
nutshell.
trying to end on a good note.
Okay. No, I think great. I think great. Lovely. I think yeah. I mean, Indian football is just bells and whistles, dude. Right? I mean, it's incredibly rosy. I mean, I feel very happy when I see the Super League Kerala. Yeah. I mean, but on a serious note, no. I mean, life outside the top tier, amazing. Watching matches at the Ambedkar on top of the Ambedkar Stadium with my 3 friends and a dog on a weekday. I think one of my fondest memories. I still do that. But yeah, as years pass by, these friends obviously they move on to other more important things in life. But yeah, I mean, honestly, lower divisions is where the heart is, because no romanticism involved. It's just that barriers are low, frills are low. You can connect one to one with a club or with a player. My favorite example is when I was in Shillong. There was a striker, right? His name was Kit Boklang Pale. He never made it big, right? But he was a local legend. He was just touted. He was saying, people for years said, "Oh, Pale is here. Pale is going to play. Pale is going to kill it," right? So every state has those Pales, right? And that's what lower level football and, like Prad said, women's football and youth football is about, right? It's about following. It's about connecting on a this thing. But the way our world is today, it's not shiny enough, it's not glamorous enough, it's not attractive enough, right? So nobody wants to go that way, right? And it might make me sound like a boomer, but yes, attention spans and obviously attractability is affecting life outside the top tier. But yeah, I mean, to all those questions, I say, who cares? I keep watching, I keep going into the Ambedkar, I still keep watching the Indian Air Force team do its thing, the Frontiers and the Rangers of the world do its thing. So that's going to keep going, irrespective of whatever comes and goes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So as we end this episode, even I want to reiterate, I personally love watching local football a lot more because, like you said, I can just sit there in one corner, sort of chill with friends. It's like a day out, and I might know a lot of these players. You give stories of someone like Roman Thanga, who's so famous, although his brother has played for the national team. Roman Thanga is like the star. Or, we had Ashokan from Kozhikode. He's Leon's father. Tremendously famous footballer in Kozhikode because of what he used to do in the Sevens Ground, Santosh Trophy, and the local teams. All that. So we need such local heroes, and I don't know. Maybe it's a little romanticized nonsense, but for me, these guys are the heartblood of our football here. So thanks a lot, Brad. Thanks a lot, Orko. And we will come back with more such discussions. If you have any suggestions, you can tweet to us and DM us, etc. And we'll have more of these longer discussions this time, away from the top division or on very nuanced topics. So keep watching. Yeah.